Welcome to the Walaway. Everybody around Walaway here. And we're going to go straight into it. There's been some comments regarding MVPs, color of our MVPs in basketball, different treatment for players of different color, different treatment for players from different countries. So let's go directly into it and see what some of the NBA talk has been about this league, and let's break it down.
Why does European players not get the same flack for winning championships or not than U.S. American-born guys? For instance, I saw a list today Stephen A. put out, and it was like the players under the most pressure to win a championship. I think James Harden was 1, CP was 2, Jason Tatum was 3, Joker was 4. Joker has 2 MVPs. Joker has 2 MVPs. More than likely about to be a 3rd MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And he's older than JT.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that he's 4th, but JT's 3rd? And Luka wasn't even on the list, right?
So off the bat, I got some issues with this. He's saying, why do European players not get the same amount of spec that American players or American-born players get? And unfortunately, when I watched this clip the first time, I kind of knew where this was going. And Gilbert alludes to it, and Kendrick Perkins later on alludes to it. This seemed like it became like a black and white type of thing. Is that true, number one? Are we sure that European players do not get the same flack that American players do? How do we know that? What's the evidence? Was he there? Was Draymond there in Dallas when the Mavericks were not winning their championships? And was he reading the local papers? Does he have all the clips showing and highlighting when they weren't winning, and the criticisms that Dirk was getting? Was he around San Antonio when the Spurs weren't winning, when they should have been winning? And Ginobili was getting his flack for being injured, and Ginobili was getting his flack for being inconsistent, and Tony Parker was getting his flack for not having a jump shot. I think the sentiment is based off of a bias. The bias is not a surprise, and they're going to go after Jokic now. But Jokic is on the original list that Stephen A. Smith had. Their issue is, why is Jokic not higher on the list? Okay? James Harden has been in the league a lot longer than Jokic. CP3 is damn near 38 years old. Okay? And he's gotten injured a lot going into the postseason. They were in the finals a couple years ago. They didn't pull through. Why is there more pressure on someone like CP3? Because he's 38 years old. He's not going to be around in the NBA much longer. All right? And if we were nuanced, we would know that Jokic, he's been without his star-studded point guard for about 2 seasons. Jamal Murray missed about a season and a half to 2 seasons. So if you're going to be without your stud point guard, should you be expected to win the NBA championship? So what is the argument really about? So let's keep going.
Now, obviously, Luka's a little younger than JT, but...
Okay, let's stop right there. I do agree that I don't think Jason Tatum should have the same scrutiny that Jokic has. Some could argue that Boston has a better team. Some could argue Boston has more talent and has had more talent and different iterations of talent, and they've actually made it to the finals where they lost. Now, I could consider the argument and say, let's reverse the order of Tatum and Joker. Joker should be higher. I'm cool with that. Why is it bringing up Luka? Who has Luka had on his team that has warranted a championship? Luka damn near took the Mavericks to the finals last year. They made it to the Western Conference Finals with role players. So I'm not sure where this outrage is coming from.
I feel like over the years, European players has not had the same, caught the same flack of winning a championship as U.S. players, and I don't understand that. And I wanted to know if you feel the same way about that.
So let's stop again. Again, we talked about this in the beginning, so I'm not gonna belabor that point. What is the relative total percentage of European players compared to American-born players? It's going to be a very small minority. The point that I'm making is this. Let's say it was 50-50, and we can point out statistically that they're not catching the same flag. That there's an argument to be made that there's a bias, perhaps even a racial bias. If it's a small minority, their scrutiny should be representative, right? In terms of the total. So I don't think this is a good argument. The way it's been structured, it also makes it look very weak. Let's keep going.
It's really a knock, to be honest. Do they think that they're even capable of winning it by themselves?
Okay. So Gilbert is saying it's a knock on the foreign-born players, which I think is a ridiculous and sad argument. If it was a knock against them, they wouldn't be winning the MVPs. If it was a knock against them, they wouldn't be winning in the NBA Finals. Giannis, he is Nigerian, but he is also Greek, whether you want to accept it or not. He grew up in the Greek system. He got his first play in the Greek system. Foreign-born, MVP, has NBA Finals. Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. International accolades, 4 NBA championships, final MVP, Tim Duncan, U.S. Virgin Islands. He's not born in America. 5 NBA championships, multiple regular season MVPs, multiple NBA Finals MVPs. Steve Nash, which is, these guys a lot, they criticize Steve Nash for getting 2 MVPs, which, however, they agree with the criticism. But again, he's won MVP. Dirk Nowitzki, regular season MVP, Finals MVP, NBA Finals champion. So who is knocking these guys? I don't understand who's knocking these guys.
Do they hold them to the greatness of what they hold the American players to? Right? So when you have a Luka, when you have Jokic, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, they're good European players are coming over, they're dominating, but do we hold...
They're good European players and they're dominating. So this is like a contradiction in itself. You're admitting they're good, and you're admitting they're dominating in the NBA. Your first point was, do the critics actually believe that they're good? Well, you clearly believe that they are that good. So I'm not sure what the issue is here. It's really interesting.
Them to the same standard. So it's like they get a free easy pass. Right? They get a free easy pass versus, someone, you know me.
Did Darko Milicic get a free easy pass when he was the number 2 or number 3 draft pick in the NBA? No, he got heavily scrutinized. He got called a bust. We can go on through a long list of European players who haven't panned out. Paul Gasol, who's won 2 NBA championships. What was the knock on Paul Gasol? Gasoff, right? Paul Gasoff, they used to call him soft. So, doesn't seem accurate.
You know what I'm about. It's the might be the color of the skin a little bit. You know what I mean? Got to remember the American white boy is gone. They adapted the black side of the game, right? They adopted the athletic part of the game, so they don't have the same fundamentals that they used to have.
What an interesting point. The white player has adopted the black style of basketball, and they don't have the fundamentals anymore. So in a sense, what Gilbert is saying is black NBA players don't play fundamentally. That's what it seems like he's saying, right? And on the same token, he's saying that the European players are getting love. If what he's saying is accurate, what could be a reason they're getting love? Could it be perhaps that the European players play a fundamentally sound game? Footwork, shooting motion, the way they shoot, the way they come off screen, the way they move the ball? Something to think about.
When you name, when I see, the white players, and then you put Luka in there, like, that's European. Stop. Don't try that. I'm on you. That's a good start. You can't say, he's competing with Larry Bird. No. Yeah. That's Hayward. That's Caruso. That's that group.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So I think, they're trying to find a way to ease the Europeans in to make it a broader game.
What does that even mean, to ease up in the game? When they get into the NBA, they got to go through the same obstacles as everybody else. If Kevin Garnett, if Kenny Martin, if some of these big bad bruisers from even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if they're laying the wood in, right, and they're setting a screen, they're not going to think, hey, let me set this screen lighter so it doesn't hurt this weak European player. So it seems like while these guys are trying to point out a bias, in fact, it seems like they have a bias. And unfortunately, it seems like they have a bias based on perceived notions of somebody's race.
And I don't think they want to really give them that oomph yet. But we're mentally built for it right now. You know, the jury is still out on the Europeans. You know, I mean, you know, we see Luka, amazing. Dirk, amazing. Peja, amazing. The ones that came over have been amazing, right? But they need to start understanding that there's a lot from everywhere. There's a lot now. I mean,
I don't understand what he means by we're built different. I hope he doesn't mean that like American players or Black American players are built different. And then the European players who have come over, those guys, those three are nice. But the rest of them, look, if they weren't nice, they wouldn't have beat the American team in 2004. If they weren't nice, they wouldn't have competed against the American Olympic team in 08, in 012, in 2012, 2016, 2020, right? Teams are starting to get better. International teams, international play is starting to get better. And this is why we're having strong competition against us, right? So I don't know. This is a little disheartening to hear some of this by the new media as they have daubed this name upon themselves.
You can really put an all-star game together, the overseas versus the American.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can really do that now. You know what I mean? Because you'd be surprised who's from, who's not American.
Absolutely.
Like Shea is not American.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you can really have an all-star game where it's so, you know what I mean? You need to play it down the middle now. You know, give the same respect to them as you do us, which means you have to put the same type of responsibility.
Okay, so I may have misunderstood him in the beginning, but it seems like he's saying give them the same respect. If that's what he's saying, then I agree with that. But now I think he's going to offer the counter.
On them, just like there's no way JT's supposed to be in this.
That's where I disagree. So he's saying, okay, give them the same respect, but give them the same burden, the same criteria to be judged upon, which I do think that they're getting, but let's keep going.
In this conversation right now.
Yeah.
No, why?
Yeah.
You know, he's 24, 25 years old. Huh?
Absolutely.
Like Jaylen Brown is older than him, but you put more, like, shut up. But that's what media does, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on from this, and we're going to go to a clip from back and forth between Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins. This is the best clip that I found on Jason Litlock's program, so let's take a look at it.
When it comes down to guys winning MVP since 1990, it's only 3 guys that won the MVP that wasn't top 10 in scoring. Do you know who those 3 guys were?
Who were they?
Steve Nash, Jokic, and Dirk Nowitzki. No.
Dirk Nowitzki.
What do those guys have in common? I'll let it sit there and marinate. You think about it.
So who cares, right? Who cares if they were the top in scoring and they won the MVP? Is it the highest scorer of the league? Is it the scoring title? No, it's most valuable player. And yes, there is some subjectivity into defining what makes a player the most valuable. But anybody who is a basketball head knows Dirk Nowitzki deserved it. Steve Nash deserved at least one. Jokic, argument can be made that he deserves it, right? And we're saying there's only 3 who have gotten it, and they don't lead the league in scoring. And what do they have as similar? So Kendrick Perkins is alluding to the fact that they're white. Okay. I mean, that's such a silly way. Like, okay, Dirk is German. Steve Nash is Canadian. Joker is, I think, Serbian. They're not the same country. Sure, their pigmentation might look a little more similar, but what if somebody said, look at the 80% of the MVPs of the NBA, and what do they have in common? They're all black. So I don't like these arguments. For me, these arguments are weak. They're based in some type of bias. I don't think they do anything positive. And they also undermine the players that they're attacking. Okay? Steve Nash, for anybody who knows what Steve Nash did in the NBA, he wasn't a highly touted top 10 type of player before he won his MVPs. When he left the Dallas Mavericks for the Phoenix Suns, expectations were much less than what they actually wound up becoming. He took a team, yes, had Amari Stoudemire, who eventually got microfracture knee surgery, and then another knee surgery, and he made these guys into a bona fide championship contender in a loaded Western Conference. If they had played in the East, there's a high chance that they make it to the finals all those years. And he got a lot of his guys some big contracts because of the style of play, because how much he made his players better. He made his teammates better. He found the sweet spots of his teammates and he allowed them to score and thrive. So I think that's a little bit of a cop-out. We're going to keep going and then I'm going to address some of the rest of the points.
Maybe they can all say Nowitzki like everybody else and they won't call him Nowinski. Maybe that's what they have in common.
Let me find the actual clip. You know, these guys bring up color, and I hate to bring it here, but look at this. Who's the only white player here? As far as I know, Jason Kidd, I believe, is mixed. Jokic. How many foreign players do we have on here? One, Jokic. Shouldn't that count for something if we're gonna make this about race? So, I don't know. Dangerous place to take this. We're gonna try to find the original clip.
It's only 3 guys that won the MVP that wasn't top 10 in scoring. Do you know who those 3 guys were?
Who were they?
Steve Nash.
So, we watched this clip already, guys. We're going to watch it again. Just bringing up the 3 again. Here's what I want everyone to take a look at. Where do I have it? Here we go. So, let's look at MVPs for the last 30 years. Let's point out how many white individuals that we have as MVPs. Jokic won. It's funny, none of these guys are referring to Giannis as a European. He's from Nigeria, but spent some time in Greece. So we're going to leave him off. Interesting that they're not bringing up Giannis. So we got 1 still. So we see African-American, 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 German, one of the guys he brought up. Canadian, one of the guys he brought up. African-American, from the U.S. Virgin Islands, another individual they don't bring up as a non-American player. Interesting. African-American, 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 African-American. And we can go on and on. And then we got Larry Bird in the 80s a couple times. Again, so yes, 3 players who won the NBA MVP in the last 30 years are not black. Are we denying their greatness?
Jokic and Dirk Nowitzki. No. What do those guys have in common? I'll let it sit there and marinate. You think about it. Now, here's the thing when it comes down to the MVP conversation and why I say the goalpost move. It's because it was during the time in 2006 when Steve Nash won his 2nd MVP, when he had a roster full, didn't have the best record in the league, and Kobe Bryant was averaging.
What does he mean by roster full? See, that's a very loaded statement. Who did Steve Nash have on his team in 2006? Let's take a look. We don't know if he means 05, 06, or 06 or 07, but let's take a look at both. Okay, Marcus Banks, Leandro Barbosa, foreign player, Raja Bell, defensive specialist, Pat Burke, Boris Diaw, foreigner, James Jones, specialist, Jermaine Jones, specialist, Sean Marion, all-star caliber, Sean Marks, come on, foreigner, Steve Nash, this is the individual we're talking about, Eric Pikowski, 3-point specialist, Jalen Rose, older Jalen Rose, Amari Stoudemire, I think this is after the injury, or even prior to the injury, and older Kurt Thomas. What are we complaining about? Are we saying that this is a loaded team? Are we saying that before Steve Nash came to this team, all these individuals were looked at as top 10, top 20 talents? It's not fair. Not fair at all.
31. And if you go and look at that 2006 roster that Kobe was playing with, which they finished number 7 in the Western Conference, which I don't understand.
All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look. So look at this. The Suns record, 61-21, finished first in the NBA Pacific Division. 61 wins. And we know what this team was capable, or they were not capable of doing before Steve Nash stopped there. Not fair. But let's look at what the Lakers had. 42 wins. Almost 20 less wins than Steve Nash's sons. Kwame Brown, their work didn't pan out. #1 pick in the NBA draft. Andrew Bynum, who eventually became a top 5, top 6 big man in the NBA when he was flowing. Brian Cook, a very good collegiate career. Maurice Evans, Jordan Farmar, Aaron Lachi, Lamar Odom, who was part of the Shaquille O'Neal trade from the Miami Heat. Yes, Smush Parker, no problem. Radmanovic, 3-point specialist. Rade Joria from France. Sasa Vujicic from overseas. Let's not go there, right? I don't think this is a fair example or fair criticism that Kendrick Perkins is putting against.
Understand how he did that with that team he had. No disrespect to those players, but it is what it is. How was he not winning it? Leading the league in scoring that year. So when it comes down to moving the goalposts for certain individuals to win it, again, is it Uchiwale or is it...
Also, again, if the whole point from Kendrick and from Gilbert is that it's a race issue, I'm going to go back to Exhibit A, okay? Exhibit A. Let's start in 87. Magic Johnson, black. Charles Barkley, black. Hakeem Olajuwon from Nigeria, for black. David Robinson, black. Michael Jordan, black. Karl Malone, Shaq, Iverson, Kobe, Kevin Garnett, Derrick Rose, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. They're black players, right? So are we saying that black players don't have a fair shot at getting the MVP?
Is it one mic? Like, what song are we actually dancing to right now? Why is this subject not brought up? What do those 3 guys have in common when they won the MVP for us? Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, and Jokic, that wasn't top 10 in scoring.
Yeah, what do they have in common with you other than have not been top 10 in scoring? Winners. They played very hard. Good free throw shooters, good 3-point shooters, good field goal percentages. As I said, proven winners. Dirk Nowitzki, a champion. Steve Nash, multiple-time Western Conference. Again, people are going to diminish what he did. He played in a time where it was difficult to just make it to the 2nd or 3rd round of the Western Conference Finals. And his co-captain, the best player on his team, went through multiple knee surgeries. Not fair. Jokic has played with a gutted roster for many years. Starting this year, all the pressure is on Jokic, and a lot of analysts are saying the same thing. So if Jokic doesn't win it this year with a healthy roster, all criticism should be put on his shoulders.
We moved the goalpost so much. So don't come giving me, they're the #1 seed this year in the Western Conference, so he's averaging triple-double. That's why he should be the clear-cut favorite. They wasn't the #1 seed last year. They was actually the #6 seed. One seed from being in the play-in tournament. So that's my whole thing. Is like, why we move the goalposts for certain people and then for others, we don't. So when I was trying to make a case 2 years ago for Chris Paul, when I was saying, hey, you know what? The Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul.
So he's absolutely right about this one point. Chris Paul should absolutely have been considered an MVP at his advanced age to do what he did with the Suns and to make them a championship contender and take them to the finals. He absolutely should have been considered as an MVP of the season. That's in my estimation. But I don't believe there's any basis on race here. And I could be wrong. That's my opinion.
Same organization, same position, same results. Why is he not getting...
I would argue, though, that he didn't have the same talent. Because remember, Steve Nash had older players and role players that were playing to their pinnacle, other than Amari. Shaq, when he joined them, older. Grant Hill, older. Boris Diaw, not older, but overweight. Leandro Barbosa, specialist, is very fast. Here's Chris Paul. Look, you have Devin Booker, another MVP candidate. DeAndre Ayton, who's supposed to be, again, lottery pick, I think a top 3 pick, supposed to be one of the best big men in the league, very athletic. You had Cameron Payne, you had Mikal Bridges, you had all these guys who were super talented, right? So I don't think it's an apples-to-apples comparison.
Getting the love that Steve Nash was getting when he was in Phoenix for as the MVP candidate or winning being the MVP frontrunner. I'm just trying to say, Stephen A., am I missing something here? Am I missing something?
Well,
is it Uchiwale or is it one mic? And you know where that song come from,
I
right?
know where I know what you're talking about.
So I think I'm gonna stop it there, guys. So they brought up a couple players, right? They brought up why do Chris Paul and James Harden get the most criticism? Again, Chris Paul, 38 years old. He has always missed out on that championship window. He's been into the finals once. They lost. He's considered arguably the best point guard to ever play, or top 3 all-time point guards. And he's had different teams where he's had super talented teams. Let's not forget about the Clippers, Duck City, Lob City, DeAndre Jordan, Griffin, JJ Redick, Hito Turkoglu, Matt Bard, Steven Jackson. I'm missing so many other guys that have played in and out of those teams. Let's not forget about who we had in the Houston Rockets, his fellow MVP, and James Harden. And they couldn't get it done, right? He had a hamstring issue, but that's also why he has a block on him. James Harden, MVP, scoring leader for multiple seasons, not been able to get it done. Well, he's played on multiple teams. He played on the OKC Thunder as a young man, made it to the finals, they lost. He played on the Rockets, they couldn't get the job done. He played on the Mets, they couldn't get the job done. And now he's in Philly. Absolutely, all the pressure is on him, as it should be. So I don't think that's a fair argument that Jokic should have more pressure than them. Why? He's only been on one team. He's never had a healthy team. So why should he have more pressure? And does our boy James Harden have MVPs? Well, he has that, and he has one MVP. Jokic has 2. So one could even argue, is this not a discrimination against white MVPs? Right? So that's my take, guys. I'm going to stop it here. Share what you think. This is what I wanted to finish up. They brought up Joel Embiid, and they brought up the fact that Joel Embiid doesn't get the love that Jokic gets. Right? And Embiid deserves the MVP. So let's take a look at some stats. Let's look at their first season. And Joel Embiid came in 1 year later. In his first season, Jokic plays any games. In his first season, Embiid plays 31 games. Let's take a look at this. What is the most amount of games that Joel Embiid has played? 68 games, which is his highest. Okay? That means he missed about almost 20 games. What's the most amount of games that Joker has played? 80 games. He missed 6 games. Look, if we were to average his games, he's averaging about 75 games played a season. How about Embiid? How many games is he averaging a season? Somewhere in the low 60s, somewhere in the high 50s. He's missing a good portion of the NBA season. Let's look at their totals. Okay? Let's look at their totals. Who's got more assists? Yes, he got one more full season. More assists, 3,800 compared to 1,200. Let's look at rebounds, 4,200 to 6,100. Let's look at points, 11,700 to 10,000. Minutes, 11,000 minutes played to 17,000 minutes played. I'm not even going to go through the rest of the stats. People get real enamored with sexy highlights. A guy jumping in the air, blocking somebody's shot into the stands, blocking it off the backboard, getting hyped. But at the end of the day, numbers and stats do not lie. So when Kendrick talks about Jenny Redick is an analytical person and he believes in analytics, why not? He believes in data, but why not? Prove to me where the data shows Embiid should be the MVP over Jokic. How many MVPs is Jokic currently playing with? 0. How many MVPs is Embiid currently playing with? 1 in Harden. So not an apples to apples comparison, guys. Do give me your thoughts, and I would love to hear what you have to say. Let me know if I got anything wrong here. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.